Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Xtreme Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I'm next to a tiny lake, a dwarf lake, if you will. And tonight's movie is going to be, well, extreme. We have Pumpatine with us, even though it's EST and Latin Standard Time. We have Pumpatine, so it's PST. So those of you on the West Coast, it might only be 5:10. But we are going to talk about the extremely obvious and never done before here on the Xtreme Movie Show, and that's this: extreme movie scenes. Tonight we're just going to bring up a couple scenes from movies that maybe they went a little too far. Perhaps it did or it didn't work according to what you think, but ones that really, really stuck out. Not good scenes, not memorable scenes, but scenes that just probably shouldn't have been there that went extreme. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I'd like to say hello to my guests at this time, RDV and Pumpatine. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we this evening?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing good.
Good. Pumpatine, long time no see. I'm glad you were able to make it back here tonight. So, extreme movie scenes, gentlemen. Should I go first with an example, or do one of you have something that sticks out?
You should start, yeah, definitely.
Okay. So when I think of extreme scenes, of course, the easiest one to me kind of comes with the idea of violence. And I think that's a bit simplistic. So I'm going to go back to one from about 14 years ago that was so extreme that people went really, really crazy about it. But when you think about it, it really wasn't. And that's Psycho. And everyone always talks about the shower scene. Oh my God, it's so brutal. It's so graphic. A third of the way into the movie, they kill off what we think's the lead character, and then it turns into a different movie. We got swerved by Hitchcock himself. But yet, when you go back and you look at it, the knife never really enters the body. I think we all know that. It's implied. We see the blood circling down the drain. And I think a lot of people to this day that look at film, and the serious film critics are the ones that, take it too serious, would sit there and say, that was too much, especially for the time. So to me, I would call that an extreme scene, and I would say that it was somewhat effective for what it was trying to do. It came out of nowhere. It made you go, holy hell, what the hell's going on? You don't know. And again, a third of the movie's gone. So I think that's a very easy one that comes out to me. So we're talking about scenes like that pop up, and it doesn't have to be graphic violence or something, but extreme where it just goes beyond normal conventional means that kind of gets under your skin a little bit. So what do you guys got?
Well, I actually got an actual movie, and this only reason why I say it went too far because of the director who was and how he filmed it. It's
okay.
Movie The Abyss. He filmed the whole entire movie 30 feet underwater.
Yes.
15 to 18 hours a day filming out in 5-hour chunks that, thanks to underwater oxygen filling stations. But it took a while to get the pH levels right, and then the crew member suffered hair loss and burnt skin. So
that's definitely extreme.
Land living was like built there since it was a winter time, and it was like the shipping crew could only accomplish non-filming business was in a hot tub. Oh, and then people getting cold, they get sick, it was. They just said it was like abuse. But turned out to be a great movie towards the end. I guess it was kind of it was great. So maybe they're all prima donnas. I don't know. But yeah, that was one of the movies I remember watching. I was like, it's a great movie. But I remember reading behind the scenes about it. I was like, James Cameron, just because he's obsessed with this movie, just because he once saw the what is called the Mariana Trench, what it's called, Mariana's Trench.
Yep.
Yeah, because he wants so. That's where he got inspired to do the movie The Abyss. I was like, damn. So like filming 30 feet underwater, that's creepy for me. It's like, no, unless we're in like a tank, and like not in the ocean. Like if we're on a sound stage, that's one thing. So it's water and me do not mix unless I'm taking a shower, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too.
I am not the person like, hey, let's go on a boat. Sure, where we don't know what's in there can just come up like freaking Deep Rising.
Well, that's one of the things that we give him credit for is that it is one of his passions is deep sea diving and all that. So I appreciate the attempts of realism trying to get into his movies. We could say, let's say, for example, more recently about the Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible movies, where they try to be as authentic as possible in a lot of it. I think that's great. I don't know if I would call them extreme, but they're damn good. I mean, so practical effects are definitely something interesting, but when you know that they're not having any help at all, that's phenomenal. So Peppertine, let's give us something, bro, as we say hello to Leandra and tell him.
Okay. The scene that comes to mind right now is from the Judge Dredd movie. Most recent one with Carl Urban as Judge Dredd. Towards the end, the bad guy is on top of the building. And it's been a long time since I watched it. Somehow, she falls off. And we watch her as she's falling. But as she hits the ground, it does not just cut away. And it doesn't just show the body there on the ground. We are at the bottom, watching from above. Hey, there you are. Oh, no, she's coming closer. And then she hits the screen and flattens out. It's almost cartoonish. But I remember watching that moment and going, oh, I did not expect that. That was an extremely graphic death.
Wow. I'm not as familiar with the movie as you guys may be, so I can't really say I have a review of it. It sounds pretty graphic. RDV, are you familiar with that scene?
No, I haven't. I've never watched the movie. But I have another movie that's can top that's even grosser.
Well, we can always get really gross, but yeah, go ahead.
Human Centipede.
Oh, this one is creepy, if I remember right.
The whole, the three terrorists are basically kidnapped by a German scientist who basically wants to like create a human centipede. So he sews their mouths to their butts. You know, it's like, who thinks up of these things? And like, there's even a sequel or a prequel to this as well. There's another movie. I was just like, one was shock and awe. Obviously, what you're going for this, but it's like the fact that somebody decided to make another one up based off this movie. It was pointless. I mean, it's like they just kidnapped to torture. It's all it was is like torture porn. Like at least Hostel and stuff, it had like had some a plot to it. This was just like I'm just gonna sew because he already had two dogs sewed together, and then he's like it's like I'm gonna do with humans and like the guy's crazy. He was a renowned surgeon, places like they was fired because of his ideas and his experiments. So it's just gross. It's all it was. The whole movie is just gross. There was no point of it really other than just being gross. So like, why make it unless you just show how fucked up you are in the head? And I felt bad for the girl who's in the middle. The guy in the front, he died, and the girl in the back, she died. So then she's stuck. Even if they survive, she's stuck. It's like I'm just thinking like it's a gross movie, and the person who decided to make that movie should be like thrown in jail. There's no point of that.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of movies that go for the shock and awe without the shock and awe having merit to the film, and so that's where these things kind of get grossed out. I mean, a lot of people think Hostel by Eli Roth because of the eye torture scene in there is gone too far, and I'm like, that's just a practical effect. But the doom and gloom all the way up to before you even get to that point of the whole movie is what makes it great, not just this one scene where the girl actually survives for a while and what happens afterwards. Yeah. But I'm gonna kind of take this in a little bit of the Carl Urban type direction here and kind of go with a movie that is a lot of fun. And the reason why this next scene is so extreme is because it's really uncalled for in terms of violence, the way it sticks out, even though it's only on scene for a moment or two. And this is Flash Gordon. So we all know Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets. Fun movie. As a kid, you can watch it. A lot of quotable lines. Fantastic music. It's one of the funnest type of movies like that I think that's around. And there's a scene in there where you've got the floating city, and you've got the Hawkman controlling the separate little platform where Flash and was it Prince Baron are fighting, and they're going back and forth and they're whipping each other. And of course it's James Bond before he's James Bond there too with Timothy Dalton. And of course, Flash should lose, but he's not Flash or whatever. And then, of course, Flash is getting ready to fall, and he reverses it. And Prince Gordon's going to do it, and then he goes to stick his arm out, and he's like, come on, Prince. And he's like, save him. And he's like, where'd you go? I follow. And it's this big bromance kind of thing, and it's about loyalty. Then the bastard who's got really cool armor, Prince Baron, or what the hell his name is, shows up with a gold skull face mask. And so to start the revolution at this point, now that they're bros, he tosses him onto the rotating platform, and his eye gets gorged out, and it just kind of leaks out and hangs there. It's absolutely so disgusting that as a kid I went, what the hell is this? This should not have been in this movie at all. Completely extreme. I might laugh if I go back and watch it now, but just the way the movie is tonally from beginning to end, it's so G-rated, it's so fun, so cartoonish in that sense. It's great escapism. And then they throw in this really graphic scene. It was just unnecessary. You could just show him as a crumpled mass dissolving, but no, you had to show his eyeball squirting out with the spikes going through his head, and that's what makes that Flash Gordon scene really extreme. Oh, Joe is saying that Puppetine left out that Dredd forced the bad girl to take it of her drugs. Yeah, here's a hit of your own.
Yes, thank you to Joe Rogers for reminding me.
So LK is asking, what is the topic tonight? We are talking about, LK, extreme scenes. And by extreme, I don't necessarily mean sex or porn or violence, that kind of stuff, but scenes that really, really stick out that went too far in a movie that probably shouldn't be there. And the easy ones are obviously like violent ones, of course, because they may not have anything to do, and shock for shock's sake's not always a good thing. So I just mentioned Flash Gordon. Puppetine brought up Dredd. RDB talked about the human centipede, which is absolutely disgusting. So this brings us around full corner to you, Puppetine. You got another one?
I actually do. I know we're in the second week of, or is it the third week? We're in November, and I'm still feeling those.
What, Puppetine?
He froze.
Of when I was still watching the horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
American Werewolf in London. It has one of the most impressive practical effects. Just period. Watching the transformation into the werewolf, it is astounding that they were able to pull that off.
Okay.
What made it extreme?
Yeah. You missed it. You
What
froze.
made it extreme? What?
Explain it to
His
everybody.
entire
People do not
face
know. We have a young
stretches
audience.
out. The hair growing off of him. You can hear the anguish coming from him as he's transforming. What do you mean?
You just mean the scene overall, start to finish, once he starts yelling and screaming and how painful it is and all that.
No.
You're saying extreme as being good. Okay, because I'm going movies that went too far.
Well, it
I
does
mean,
stick out.
out of all the werewolf transformations, that is one of the most graphic ones out there. It just to watch his face change. It's also an impressive effect. Because one of the most impressive practical effects of all time, maybe.
Well, yeah, it is impressive. It is extreme for being extreme. As I agree with you on that scene. As far as it's not CG. All the other ones like Ginger Snapped, it's freaking CG, or it's like a little bit of makeup. It's like off screen, and then all of a sudden there's a werewolf. I'll go one step further. Before that, we just watched The Wolfman a couple weeks ago. The visual effects of that at the time were great because the fact he shows him how he grows the hair and it overlaps at times and all the fur goes on his face. No one had ever done that before, so that was pretty cool for that. So, but yes, I agree. That raised the bar, and you watch any other werewolf movie where a guy turns the werewolf, it's just like just falls short.
Absolutely.
It's really memorable, and I think when most people think of that movie, they immediately go, "Oh yeah," when he transforms, because it is violent. It is, it's painful, and of course, we think of these transformations. We just think, "Okay, we got to watch them transform, and that's it." But then the reality of it is like, yeah, it is graphic. It is disgusting. Maybe I don't know if that's the right word, but you feel what he's going through, the anguish of it. It's like, are you kidding me? And I like how they lingered over it too. They didn't bother just showing you, okay, he's here and now he's out there as a wolf. They actually made that an integral part of the movie where you understood what he went through. And I think having that series of a scene does stick out, not just because of of the scene itself, but because the rest of the movie we say is a little bit tongue-in-cheek as we reviewed it, and it gives you that nice cynical ending to it. If you didn't have that kind of a real dark scene early on, I don't know if the ending is as strong because of it. So yeah, that's an interesting take. I wouldn't have thought of that off the top of my head, but interesting. Yeah. Let's see what we got here in the comment section. Yeah, Rick Baker, Maranya. Yep, Rick Baker did that.
Here's an extreme scene too, when Andy in Shawshank Redemption crawls through like 500 feet of shit.
Extreme.
Extreme. Just escape. No, but no. As far as what I've been talking about is where movies went too extreme. As far as that, where they get to the point where, who really wanted to watch this? Monica Bellucci did a movie back in 2003 called Irreversible. It's about a girl who survives being raped, and her boyfriend basically takes justice in their own hands. When filming the scene, it only went for 9 minutes, which is a final cut, but the original ones went longer. And still to this day, she's the actress. She looks back, she can't watch the film because it looks too real, and it felt real. She was kind of like disturbed after that, even though it was fake. It just grossed her out. And there's another movie just like that. It's called I Spit on Your Grave, where Engeltein's said this before too. It's 40 minutes of just a girl getting raped.
Stuff like that is just shock for shock's sakes. That's got no merit at all.
It's gross. I don't understand why people have to do that. We understand. Yeah, rapes it is a disgusting thing. But it should be like a good fourth of the movie.
I don't know if that really counts towards the topic though, because the first example we were talking about, Psycho, it was too extreme for the time. That is just like Rob said.
And I'll say you're full of stuffing.
I am full of stuffing.
Vegan stuffing. Well, it's interesting what we consider extreme, because that's a good point. We've never really actually talked about this topic because initially when we started the Extreme Movie Show, it was really more about our opinions, where we actually gave it and argued and fought about it. And by today's watered down standards, we're going, oh my God, best movie ever, CGI effects. That's about as detailed as you get. It's a masterpiece, 10 out of 10, and the movie hasn't even launched yet. That's not what we're about, but we never really gave it serious thought. And of course, we've talked about weird movies, goofy movies, bad movies, dumb movies, just movies that kind of aren't part of the norm. And I think one example that comes to my mind, which it's one that you guys probably haven't seen because it's an older one and it is a cult film, and it's not necessarily the scene I'm going to talk about is what I think about when I think of this movie and how I despise this guy in these movies, but it's a John Waters film called Pink Flamingos from the early 70s. This guy made a couple movies. He made this movie on like $20,000 or something like that, super low budget for the time. It made money, obviously.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
But it's like this she-male or drag queen or whatever like that, and there's all this stupid stuff going on in the movie. And it's like, look, as much as representation as we're seeing in movies from all different subsets and cultures and whatever you want to describe that as, I'm being very PC here. I have zero issues with it if it means something to a story rather than just checking a box. If somebody's going to make a movie where they, explore the hidden side of a part of the world that we don't get to see or a different culture, hey, I'm cool. That kind of stuff sticks out and makes me go, hey, interesting. But what happens in this movie at the end where you've got this, was it Divine, I think it's the name of the person, picks up like dog shit literally and just eats it on screen, and they film it and like, oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. We got to get that in. That's good copy. I mean, this movie is just so despicable on so many levels, and it's not like it's a movie that they tried to do good or it's somebody's first take and they didn't know what the hell they were doing, so they're trying to do everything. It's just offensive to me, that, not because the director didn't was successful, because I cannot fault John Waters or Divine, whoever that person was, or anybody else involved in the movie. Screw it. The guy, made the movie cheap, made $1 gazillion off of it, made some more stuff. Can't fault him for it. But when I look at the 70s, supposedly like the high time when it comes to like TV writing and movies and, all media kind of peaking, so to speak, it's embarrassing to me that when people are trying to do these alternative kind of movies, even if they're like blaxploitation, at least there's some reason why they're being done. To see trash like this on screen is insulting, and it's a waste not just of your time and money, but if you ever thought, even though I've always said movies are a product, there is an artistic part to it. Not everybody can act, sing, or have a look. Not everybody can be as deprived as Divine or anybody else together, but it just seems like they're being gross for gross sake, and the joke is on us, not on them. And I just think that's totally wrong. And this is one of the very first movies outside of a couple others, like I Spit on Your Grave, that as a kid, I go, what's the big deal about it? Why is it good? Why is it bad? And why is it extreme? Why will my parents want me to see it? Horrible, horrible film. It's ridiculous to see. I mean, if that's your thing and you want to go see it, more power to you. But there's no reason for this movie to be made. It's on one of my worst films ever list. And I don't really think about it. And I'm not really mad, but it's just so disgusting and filthy. It is the epitome of extreme and not in a good way. End of rant.
So
You had to have at least one.
So here's an extreme take. Adventures of Mile and Otis, Incredible Journey. Apparently the animals were abused. There's a scene where the kitten going over the waterfall in a tiny box. They're saying they actually did that to a cat. Wow. Extreme outrage is brutal.
No, I can't. Well, the extreme theme for animals, now that you bring it up, and I'm kind of half joking here, is the fact that everybody in movies these days hates dogs. I mean, unless they're cartoon dogs, it's like, okay, can't wait till we kill them. Let's reincarnate them. Yeah, but let's give them a nice violent death. Yeah, let's make a cute Shih Tzu and then we'll kill it off. Now let's make it a German Shepherd.
And I agree. Since 1932, The Mummy, they've just been killing dogs on movies.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Damn Egyptians.
Well, they're supposed to be man's best friend. So whenever you see your best friend die, it hurts.
Unless
that's just,
But don't worry, Cujo gets revenge.
All right, Puppetine, your turn. Then I'll go to the comment section.
Okay, my turn. There's like so much in here that it's hard to narrow it down.
If you're talking, we can't hear you, Puppetine. I know you're off your meds right now. You're a little slow. You look sad, despondent. While you're thinking of something, I will go to the comments.
Sometimes, So, because there are scenes that do like push the envelope, but they don't really. You can't really consider those extreme. They're right there, and it's just.
Oh.
Well, let me give you a different example of extreme to use our second favorite besides movies analogy, and that's professional wrestling. Okay, so professional wrestling, if I've got if my finishing move on RDV is going to be, I'm going to poke him in the eye and he's going to fall to the ground, I'm going to cover him for the 1, 2, 3. I could take 6 months out of the year, design an entire program around all that, building up for my finger that I like to poke him with, how it breaks, all this kind of stuff, leading all the way up to it, and make money. And it's a big buildup because everybody wants to see me poke him in the eye, and he gets counted out 1, 2, 3. So in that 6 months, 5.5 of that months is going to be him outsmarting me, being a chicken shit heel, beating the crap out of me, doing all sorts of stuff, breaking my fingers. So he gets his ass beat. It's an easy theme. But what happens today is, okay, I have 4 finishers. I'll hit you with them 14 times in a row. You'll outweigh me by 100 pounds, and yet I still won't get the win. And it's totally unbelievable. They've gotten so extreme that it doesn't mean anything. It devalues it. So it's like we said with guns. Yeah. The more movies have gone along and guns have been shown, now we get into the 80s that we talk about with Chuck Norris. We go from Chuck Norris films that we like to Chuck Norris ones where it's, okay, 10,000 bullet time. And it's just ridiculous. It's, once you go past a certain level, you can't go past it anymore because it won't have any meaning. So kind of the shock and awe stuff is what we're talking about, Puppetine. I don't know if that helps, but that's what we're looking for. Eric's bidding on Puppetine. $1. Do I hear it too?
Well, here's one.
Are you bidding for ownership of me? Is that what's happening now? can't come up with an example, thus you sell me off.
How soft are you? Like Cottonelle?
You know, going off of what we were talking about at first, like we said, for the time, Psycho was considered, oh my gosh, that's so extreme. Same thing with American Werewolf in London. That was extreme. Nowadays, with so many effects, we get But at that time, watching that was gruesome. And, you know, I've got one more example, and it's just throughout the entire movie. It's The Thing remake by John Carpenter. That movie is just constant pushing of blood, guts. It's everywhere. We start off with the dog. It explodes and becomes this monstrous little demon that comes at you. You were talking about dogs. And that is the entire movie.
The thing with The Thing, even though it's a remake, is you bring up a good point. And I remember seeing an interview with Carpenter in it, and he said that, hey, look, with this movie, you know, we talk about suspense and being a thriller where we're not going to show a monster because, you know, what's behind the door and what we think of in our mind or under the bed is scarier than the practical thing. He took the opposite approach, said, no, bullshit. We're going to show this monster. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be disgusting. And I think, Maranya, if I'm correct as well, Brick Baker may have done that as well. Right after actually American Werewolf in London, I believe, or right in the same time frame anyway. And so, yeah, to your point, they show this creature and they show what it does. And the good thing that makes it horrific, again, it's not the monster and how extreme it jumps out on you literally when his hands go through the chest cavity and it shrieks and all that. That was really disgusting. That was super extreme. But for me, the scene in the movie that's really extreme is almost a non-violent one. And that's why this movie is so friggin' good. It's such a slow burn. It's a scene where they've all established what's going on. The doctor's establishing the infection rate and how much longer they have in the world and all that stuff. So they're all together in a room. And this is when the movie gets really paranoid to me. And it's still one of the most effective scenes I've ever think Carpenter shot. And that's when they're doing the blood test. And that's the scene where they're all around there and they say, hey, if it's, you know, allergic to fire or whatever it is like that, we put a little bit of our blood in here, we touch it to it, and you know somebody's going to come up as the monster. You don't know who, but even to this day watching it, when they're going around just looking at each other and they've got the blood in the petri dish and then they're touching or whatever like that, even though you know it's going to jump up and scream, which it does, it still gets me. And it's a great example of an extreme movie and a couple extreme scenes from it. I would agree with you on that, because at the time that was considered really disgusting, and they did compare it to an American Werewolf in London, but not in the pretty sense that we might think about American Werewolf, more of an ugly, disgusting, you know, kind of scene to it. So I would agree with you on that. That's a really excellent movie.
Speaking of excellent movies, I'm gonna pull the scene with Robert Shaw from Jaws, talking about the USS Cannibalism. Talking about in the way he delivers, the way the lighting and such, his tone of voice, the ocean turns red, despite all your pounding and your hollering. The sharks come in and they rip you to pieces. Dude, like the way the guy acts, like it's believable to think that his character actually really was there. Like Robert Shaw was there. It's one of the best scenes out of the whole entire movie. Other than, you know, with the shark swallowing him whole. But yes.
I've got one more that's extreme, and maybe that'll inspire you guys to have one more. And I gotta thank Dalton, the Authenticator, for this one, because about a year or so ago, we had been talking about it for so long, we decided to do it. It was such a fun time. We had such a great review of The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp. The whole idea of this movie, The Ninth Gate, is so silly. It's so stupid. Johnny Depp is this book detective, and he's a slime bag. And you find out that everybody else in this movie is kind of worse than him, but you don't see that at first. So he basically is hired to vet that this book is legitimately an occult book, and he finds this mystery with it and goes through this deep dive. And the movie goes on forever, and I love it. It's got great music. It's the greatest Hitchcock film Hitchcock never made, according to Eglantine. And Dalton and I, when we reviewed it, we talked about the very end, because the end scene is You've got the switch that's kind of like protecting him or kind of guiding him along, that mounts him like a succubus and is taking his seed and all that too. You see all this. And then there's still like another 10 or 20 minutes afterwards because they're driving and they find the lost page of this book and they're trying to figure out if they can really open up the gates to hell. And the extreme scene to me is not the scene where Boris Balkan, played by Anthony, not Perkins, the guy, the Dracula dude, he sets himself on fire, which is just so absurd and silly. But the really absurd scene to me is the literally last scene of the movie where, because they actually performed this whole thing, the actual gate of hell opened and you see him walking through. And every person I know with this movie is like, what the fuck just happened there? I don't get it. Did he really find hell and the door to it? And yes, that's the absurdity of this movie. It's just so ridiculous. And it's such a fun time getting there with a bunch of swerves that makes it entertaining to me. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but Dalton loves it. I love it. It's extreme. It's like, really? Johnny Depp, he's going to go through the gates of hell. I'm buying this one. Oh, shit, he did it. Really? Wow, okay. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. That amused me. Franklin Jelly, thank you, LK. Yes. All right, any others, guys?
I'm looking over some things.
Oh, you get a chance to look it over. I don't know if you've noticed, but my hands are kind of busy just laying here. Just hanging. They're very busy.
I don't know what you're doing with your hands, bro.
He wouldn't be rubbing one out. I guess he would, as a puppet, he'd be folding one out. I don't know. Yeah, Maranya's saying there that extreme to Maranya is doing something gory, offensive, vulgar, just because they can do it. Yeah, I think that's a little over the top. I think with Japanese stuff, you see a lot of that too, and people go, "Oh, audition this, that," and it's like, well, I get it. In the culture in Japan, I don't know if that would be considered extreme. Of course, with wrestling, they would have death matches before they got really popular in the States. A lot of people don't like that because it's going too far. Obsessive might be a word, and to me, I think extreme these days is basically not having. I mean, everything's so watered down these days. Anything they would do would be extreme these days. I mean, if they had practical effects in a comic book movie, that would be extreme because they all CGI.
Well,
Cuties would be extreme. LK, the entire show. Yeah. Kiki's bringing up Audition. Yep.
What about the baptism scene from Godfather? Al Pacino. The baptism scene from Godfather. Al Pacino coming to realize that he went from being the straight good guy, now he's becoming the evil guy. And that scene he says, like, hey, do you renounce Satan? Like, yes, I do. And then what's the fact that he actually is now the evil mob boss? And the fact that he's saying that. The whole movie is like Godfather. Yes, it's. I wouldn't say it's one of the best. I wouldn't say it's the best movie, but like, there's certain scenes in there. It's like, wow. Like I said, Al Pacino's character is struggling with his morality.
Maybe. I mean, I know he gets a lot of crap these days for yelling and shouting his lines and overacting. So I don't know with that. I mean, one of the most extreme movies, honestly, I think we've reviewed so far, and maybe that's one way to think about it too, in all seriousness, is we did that William Shatner independent film from the 70s called Impulse, where he's a gigolo serial killer, kind of. And if you've never seen William Shatner like this, well, you're in for a treat because it's an old black and white thing filmed over in, I think, Tampa, Clearwater area, all shot locally with local people, super low budget, really weird shots. But you look at this and you're like, damn, Shatner's just really freaking out of his gourd in this movie, and it's awesome. It's insane. It's really weird. Not weird for weird's sake, or like if you're a slacker, like all that stuff in the 90s. The only extreme scene that comes to my mind from the 90s that I'm thinking off the top of my head is Fear with Marky Mark, where he's like, you gotta let me in the effing house, but he kills the dog on the outside. Again, another dog killing movie, and they throw the dog's head through the doggy door. I'm like, okay, I didn't need that, Marky Marky. This movie was fine without you doing that. That kind of didn't really fit to me, but there you go. All righty, since we
actually,
go ahead.
I remember the movie I was trying to think about before, because there's two movies that came out in the 90s. There's The Crying Game, was it downright itself, was extreme. It was the first thing to do, and people were not expecting that. And then there's other movies called Funny Games. Funny Games was an extreme horror movie, basically. It's based on these two men who basically terrorize his family, and they even murder a child in the movie as well. Yeah, it was, and one of the character who basically breaks the fourth wall doing this. It's one of the most kind of like gross and effed up movies it is, and it takes you into the whole thing. It's where like what happens if a home invasion, between this couple and their small child. It's disturbing, and yeah, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but go watch it.
Not gonna lie, when I think of The Crying Game, I think of that scene in Ace Ventura where they find out the kicker's really the woman, and he starts puking, and then they had seen Mr. Ricci.
And he's like, come again? Let me rewind. And he repeats it again.
Okay, he's bringing up Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. I saw it a year or so ago. Okay, I would say that from what I remember. I don't know if I remember one specific scene, but I remember is that, and I forget the actor's name, but he was the guy that was one of the brothers, and I think the first season of Walking Dead, the evil older brother. He does such a good job. The movie itself is just really uncomfortable. I mean, it seems like it's a legitimate film, just how uncomfortable it is, the way this guy is, and it's definitely worth one of those movies that you go, I'm gonna watch it one time, and after that you're not gonna need to watch it again. But they do such a good job with it, and that's because he is so effective in it. It's that's a good one too.
You're talking about the guy who played Merle Dixon?
Yes.
Michael Rooker. Yes.
Michael Rooker. That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a great performance. It just seems real, that kind of stuff in suburbia. Yeah.
Some of that stuff is like disturbing. Like people are like, oh, I love Silence of the Lambs, and thinking like, what disturbs me is the fact there are people just as crazy and disturbed as he is, as Hannibal Lecter is. So when I see people praising these movies, it's like you realize you're praising actual people who are like this.
Yeah, and that's the end thing now is celebrating the stuff that's not a part of the norm for inclusivity purposes. Like whatever that show is that, the detective's got the father parent that's a serial killer. It's like, that's so cutting edge. That's not extreme.
Well,
that's
and
silly.
it was extreme when he was eating the brain. Really.
Not to me. I mean, it's just basic cannibalism 101, really. I mean, yeah. To me, it's when I think of extreme, I'm trying not to bring up uncomfortable stuff, so I'm trying to think of those things. And I think probably the last movie I'll go with is
Ray Liotta had extreme open mind. Okay.
It's like monkey brains from Indiana Jones. You could say that was an extreme scene,
but he was eating his own brain, so
was feeding it to him. Yeah. Now, one movie I think that was extreme that I think had to get its point across, and this guy's got beat up a lot for it. And at the time when it came out, I saw it because I really like this director, this actor, whatever you want to call him. Even though it was kind of tough to do it, I understood all the reasons why he did it. And that's Passion of the Christ. That's probably one of the most extreme movies that I've seen. And no matter what your religious affiliation may be, if you have one, it's a very powerful movie. Oh. It's got Jim Caviezel in it, obviously, as Christ, and I believe they're making a sequel. I don't know if it's wrapped yet or what's going on. I don't know if COVID's delayed it. But, it really struck a chord with a lot of people because that was the whole thing, is that you see him suffer, and he literally suffers. And, there's all those behind-the-scenes stories. He got struck by lightning twice. He had pneumonia. He literally got, pneumonia while carrying whatever, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, whatever. I'm not buying the propaganda stuff. But I will say that Jim Caviezel is who he is. He's not afraid to preach the word because that's his thing. And something about this movie really made it interesting because he's a true believer. And like Mel Gibson, who's had some strong issues with faith over the years, them to get together, make a movie that this is compelling and watching, but they do it in a very extreme way. It's tough because here's the thing: when you get browbeaten by so much, like too many bullets or too long of a rape scene, like in some of those 70s things you mentioned earlier, RDV, it desensitizes you and just makes you go, okay, here's the kill a dog scene. Okay, here's a scene where you threaten to cut off my balls or rip my toenails off or something. Okay, whatever, been there, seen or done it.
There's
something about it start to finish that just as effective and doesn't let it off, and that's why
there are certain movies that are great now that do have rape scenes in, but the way they do it though, and the length of it, and overall plot. It was nice, put in the grave. It's the other one. The Last House on the Left. Or the,
Yeah, you had mentioned that before.
The 70s is
Halloween.
the 70s more gore porn, you know, where the remake is basically the way it should have been done. The way I think it was, you know, it's yes, the girl, yeah, two girls, they're led down to this place and they're raped, and one girl is stabbed, but she manages to, she's a swimmer, she's able to take the river, float down, and get to where her parents, you know, live, and just barely, and the parents recognize the killers or the people, and go to town on them. Same, and that, yeah. So it's the same in both movies. And I gotta say, that is extreme revenge, stream planned out as like, holy crap. It's like every part of that movie, you're sitting on the edge, you're like, dude, this is great. And it gets better and better. It's like, holy crap, this is great. But then there's movies like, yes, but Kiki brought up, it's called Serbian Film. That had child sexual abuse in it, not only rape, and just like, why? And I'll tell you why. Is it say, as Rob said, shock and awe. That's all it is. There's nothing else to it.
If we're talking about movies like that, then we should talk about the
We're
Saw
not seeking them
franchise.
out. I mean, we're trying to be positive. I'm trying to keep it that way because obviously the majority of what we think of as extreme has negative connotation. I'm trying to stay away from that a little bit.
Well, if you want to go extreme, we'll go to Point Break, bro. It's about the most extreme movie there is. Keanu Reeves just shooting a gun there. Ah!
Not silly.
But it's extreme, though. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saving that one up for kicking it, I admit. So, well, let me just put it to you this way. For Season 1 Sundays, those that are listening, we've been reviewing Haven. We've been increasing our production a little bit the past few weeks, so we've been trying to drop something every day and working on release dates. So we've been talking about some of the troubles that go on in this TV show, Haven, and all that. Nothing too extreme, but a little different and kooky. But it reminds me of a show that we're going to be doing next, the first season, and that's going to be the original TV show, Twin Peaks. And the reason why that show we're going to talk about is because it's very interesting. David Lynch may have some extreme scenes in some of his movies that are there just to be there, not necessarily gorific or anything. But there was just a point when you were watching Twin Peaks where everybody on the planet could not stop talking about it because they didn't know what the hell was going to happen. They were trying to find the significance of everything in it. This was like Lost on steroids. Lost could not hold a candle to how intensely people would talk about Twin Peaks, and especially in the long second season that they had, where you find out who the killer is a few episodes in, which then everything kind of went off the hooks because then it got just really bad shit insane, and then we had the Gulf War and it got canceled or whatever. But for that year and a half, that was by far, I think, the most extreme thing on television. And even to this day, it's still pretty neat, from the theme to the quirky characters and all that, to the fact that, you know, you'd have some people doing stuff that all of a sudden jazz music would start playing and they'd start dancing. Like, what the hell is going on here? I don't get it. But that's David Lynch, and he's a bit off as rocker too. Cronenberg, somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, and that too. I like Cronenberg films. Crash, I'd have to rewatch it again to think of how extreme I think it is, because I remember at the time watching it going, I kind of didn't like it. But or Viggo Mortensen, I don't know if it's A History of Violence. It's the Russian one.
Yes,
No, the Russian one where he's wrestling. He's the Russian hit dude or whatever, and he's fighting a dude, and they're both like completely naked in the bathhouse or wherever it's at, and they're rolling around. And you see, I was like, what the hell? But it makes sense for the movie. It's not there for shock and awe. That's the kind of stuff I'm trying to think of where it has
Pauly
merit.
Shore is extreme, buddy.
Pauly Shore, buddy.
Doing the weasel.
Oh God! Stop bringing him up.
Son-in-law. Is it extreme good or extreme bad? You decide. Either way, it's so extreme.
Extremely good.
You know, when I'm thinking about movies that do that, I think one from this year, I believe it's this year, starring Nicolas Cage, that we've brought up the past couple weeks, really does make it into this list. And that is a movie called Color Out of Space.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Primal, bro.
No.
Oh,
Color Out of Space.
that's a remake.
Because there are scenes in that where you are utterly disturbed. It starts out, they farm alpacas. Yes, I know alpacas.
It's a
alpaca
beautiful
farming
looking
is
film. It
weird.
is.
It is. It is.
It's
It's
gorgeous.
absolutely stunning. But you get to the point where things start going wrong, and then it goes to shit. The alpacas form this gigantic mold with like 9 heads and they have no fur. It's just a blob, and it has sharp teeth that it looks like it's going to eat you. Absolutely. Then let's push a little further in the movie. The mother and the youngest son combine into one merged being. It's absolutely disturbing. And you can hear it towards the end because the kid's getting like sucked in. Mommy, mommy. It's absolutely disturbing. Absolutely.
Mandy's really good with Nick Cage, and it's really weird like that too.
That was extreme.
Yeah, Mandy was really good. Yeah, that's a good pull. I like that, Puppetine. Nice job. Nice. Just when you thought you're going to get even more vegan, you go and totally redeem yourself and come up with something. We'll have to put that $1 back for the bid. Maybe it'll be $2 next time.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Yeah, we'll put real stuffing inside you this time instead of that acrylic flammable stuff. All right. Any last comments, guys, before we call it a night?
I think we're doing pretty good. Unless anybody else has any other final suggestions of movies they want to talk about that they consider to be extreme.
I cannot talk to Lounger's assessment of Spider-Man when Green Goblin gets impaled by the glider. I don't know that scene.
But as far as, I'll just say this, though, it's perfect casting. I mean, totally blew me out of my seat when I saw that. I mean, he gets stabbed. I was like, oh, that's how they're going to end it?
All right. Well, Joe Rogers is saying that Son-in-Law is a good movie. We may get to that at one point because we've not gone through our stupid movie phase yet, and I know we've been fighting it.
All I know is I popped when he put in the cassette. He's like, "Thank God I'm a country boy." He's driving the tractor. It's good.
All right, guys. Thanks for showing. Thanks for Puppetine for the surprise visit. Thank you for stepping in time for Anglantine, who had some other commitments at this time. So we just wanted to come up here and just talk some stuff, and the obvious came to me. Oh, we never talked about what extreme is or what it means too much, other than the fact that we like to give opinions about things. So thanks, guys, for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for all the retweets. We're getting closer. We're about almost 800 now. We're trying to get something out every day. Be looking forward to Haven coming out. Mandalorian, Hellstrom. Of course, Tuesday night we've got Top 10, which I believe is 1987 films, which is pretty interesting too. We've got Haven finishing up before we go into Twin Peaks. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff coming up, and don't forget our annual Thanksgiving episode. Yeah. So we'll be taking a look at that.
We're only 4 away from 800.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'd like to thank RDB and Puppetine. Thank you guys for showing up, being guests, and I appreciate it. For everybody listening, thank you. Have a good night. As always, stay extreme.
Stay extreme.
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 Extreme.